just the other day, we got our first glimpse, our first look at a leaked version of Microsoft's Surface Duo 2. In case you've been living under an absolute boulder since then, this is it. This thing is going to have a triple camera setup, which is in a rather large camera bump. As you can see here, a slanted camera bump. Maybe we'll talk about that more here in a little bit. There is going to be a black model as well. And as you can imagine, I'm sure no one will be surprised to hear this, but the reaction to this leaked Surface Duo 2 model was wild. Absolutely wild. And it was split almost down the middle between people who went, yeah, I get it. I guess this is what they have to do to compete with the Z Fold line. And the other half saying, this is an absolute abomination. Kill it, burn it with fire. I hate it. So what I want to do today, because I thought this would be fun, because I'm insane, is I'm going to go through the comments left on my YouTube channel between a poll that I made and the two videos I've already made talking about this on the day that they happen. And I'm just going to kind of try to, one, answer some of the questions and some of the comments, concerns on these videos. But also, we're just going to kind of react to the reaction for Surface Duo 2. So the first thing that we got to draw our attention to is the poll. So I put out a poll saying, what do you think about Surface Duo 2 after this huge leak? Okay, there's been 337 votes, which is, a fair amount of people. And option number one, better camera, love it, got 33% of the votes. Not swayed one way or the other with a backslash there for some reason, got 15% of the votes. Oh my God, what is that camera bump? I hate it, got 45% of the vote, and the other got 7%. So 45% of you absolutely hate this camera bump. However, 33% plus that 15% who just didn't care one way or the other actually makes it 48% to 45%. So again, like I said, we are split down the middle between, I hate this or whatever. I don't care. Before we do jump into these comments, though, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, thank you so much for doing so. If you like this video, please do consider hitting that subscribe button or maybe that like button. Thanks. So at this point, let's just start reading comments, and I'll do my best to sort of respond to them in real time. This is the comments on the poll itself. I'm not going to get to all of these at all because there's way too many, but here we are. Matt Mills says, software is my only concern at this point. I would pretty much agree with that sentiment because, with the Surface Duo, my two concerns really, and the reason that instead of carrying it, the Z Fold is in my pocket, is because the software was too buggy and the camera was not very good. Well, theoretically, the camera has now been addressed. So if that's the case, then the software is pretty much the problem that's left. Jake Harvey, this actually made me laugh. I need to like that comment too. Fool me once, he says. And I 100% get that perspective. I get it. A lot of people feel like they got burned by Surface Duo, and a lot of people may be sitting back thinking, do I want to do this again? Maybe you shouldn't. I don't know, but I'm dumb, so I'm going to do it again. As long as Microsoft gives me an option of taking the red pill Windows 11, I don't care about the bump. If Duo is stuck on Android, I'm passing regardless of the bump. I've said it once, I'll say it a million more times. Surface Duo runs Android. It will run Android. The next one will run Android. If there's a third one, it will run Android. Windows is not coming to this device ever, unless someone does it in a hacky way, which I've also talked about. I really wonder how the phone posture is going to feel. If the bump ruins that posture, I don't know how I will tolerate it. So this is definitely a concern that I understand from a lot of people. So if we look back here at this image, and I've talked about this in another video, but I'll talk about it here too. Look at the size of the camera bump here relative to the thickness, and also notice the slanting of that camera bump, right? So if you take all that into account, I think that it's reasonable to assume, you can take your Surface Duo, and I genuinely feel like somewhere about here is about where it's going to be, right? So you can take your Duo and just do that with it. Have it be in this shape and then try to use it. And even if it's more than that, I don't see how that's a problem. If you have a Surface Duo, take it out, do this, and just try using it for a little bit. It's fine. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. And especially when you consider the bumper that it came with that being on, you were there. So you may already be used to holding it not totally flush. There's a gap there. So yeah, the gap's going to get, like a little bit bigger, but people are immediately acting like this is the end of the world. I don't think it is. Now, I will say this. This is an absolutely fair concern to have. You imagine you've got a camera module, here, right? Well, what happens then? This is awkward. What happens then if you push down here? Are you going to get torque? Are you going to get a flexing situation? I am concerned about that. However, imagine, we got a bumper packed in. Imagine a bumper that comes with the new one that extends the bump all the way across. I think that's going to have to happen. I think that you'll wind up having something that goes all the way across, which prevents that torquing feeling. Do I like that? Do I like the idea that I'm going to probably have to wear the bumper on my Surface Duo? No, I don't really love that. But is it a sacrifice that's going to be made in order to have better camera performance? Yeah, and I get that. Any camera is better than the one we got. If we deal with all the problems with Duo 1, we most certainly can deal with a better camera and the bump. I tend to agree with that. Price is my only concern. I'm personally expecting $1,300, $1,400 again. I think it's going to be right there in that same ballpark because I think that Duo 2 is going to pack in quite a bit in terms of additional features. We're going to get that Snapdragon 888. We're going to get a little bit more RAM. We're going to get NFC. We're going to maybe get wireless charging. I've heard both ways on that. I kind of expect it to be there. So yeah, it's going to be over $1,000, like for sure. If it doesn't have metal siding, I'm going back to normal phones. Yeah, so he's referring to here the constant cracking of the USB-C port, and you can see here from this that the USB-C port has migrated from here to the middle, which is, I don't know what to make of that. The fact that they've moved it, do I know for certain that this material is different than the other material? I don't. I've heard absolutely nothing in regards to that. So I understand though. If that's plastic again and it's weak and we have that same problem again, that's going to be a real bummer. Useless here, which come on, man, you're not useless, right? He says, so I trust the Surface team and I believe that bump or not, they're going to make it as great in the hand as possible. Yeah, this is the Surface team. Like, let's not forget that they make good hardware for the most part, Darren has a great point here. It's going to be really embarrassing if this camera array leak is true, which it is, and the performance does not live up to expectations. And I'll leave this on there in case you want to read the rest of this here because it is a good comment. But yeah, like if this is what this camera module is going to look like, if it comes out and the camera performance is still like trash, before it's like the Duo's camera is really bad. It's like, yep, but it's a selfie camera. You're literally using a selfie camera to take a picture of the outside world. It's going to be bad. But if your camera module looks like this and the camera performance is still bad, well, that's a nightmare. That's inexcusable. I'm not sure if it would get released. It will get released. That is what it's going to look like. Microsoft are out to compete with the Fold 3, and they need to match the specs as much as they can. That's pretty much what I've been saying. Either way, I would buy a Duo 2, but the bump does take away from the look. I mostly agree. I think it does. Look, let's be honest. They slapped a big camera module onto the existing design. They did. It's the same device, essentially. It is ever so slightly more narrow and ever so slightly thicker. But yeah, it does look a little goofy. I'm not sure that this is legit at all, regardless of what everyone is saying. I genuinely don't understand that perspective. Like, of insiders who are telling you this is near final hardware, and you've got no intel. You're just like, is it just your gut? Like a gut? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, I mean, if you don't, that's fine, I guess. I'd rather see a best-in-class user-facing camera, no exterior camera. You got, like, not far from a best-in-class user-facing camera. Like, that's the reality. I'll kind of say this again. If you take any device, the Z Fold 2 has way better cameras than the Duo. And I take a picture of the world with the selfie camera, and I do it again on the Duo, which is a selfie camera, they're going to look about the same because selfie cameras don't take good pictures outside of near up close things like faces. And the reason for this, and this is something I keep seeing, why didn't they just devote software to make the camera better? Because a small camera sensor is always inferior to a big one. For some reason, people just think that camera bumps are there just for the hell of it. Like, they're just doing it for no reason. And, oh, they could make a camera that's just as good with no camera bump. No, they couldn't. They absolutely could not. Bigger sensors, bigger camera modules take better pictures. And when you're starting with something that's this thin, you're going to have a bump to even have a decent camera. And if you don't believe me, people keep citing the Pixel. Look at the Pixel 6. It's got huge camera bumps because even Google with their software said, yeah, we can't compete anymore. We got to get bigger camera modules. So that should tell you everything that you need to know. In fact, I did this the other day. Here's a picture of my koi pond taken with a phone's selfie camera. I won't tell you which one. And it was a little bit out of focus because I was moving a little bit, but we'll zoom in and let this clear up real quick. So you can see how it's kind of out of focus a little bit, but you can get a general idea of the detail level. It's a little bright, but that's what it looks like. And then we look at this picture here, which, I mean, look, if we boost the lighting a bit, it's going to look pretty similar. And if we zoom in, we get a similar, it's in better focus, but again, the detail's not great. They look pretty similar, and I'll tell you that one of them, this one, is the Duo, and that one's the selfie camera on my Z Fold 2. I just did this as an experiment, and they're pretty similar pictures. You can see the separation on the mesh here. Let's go back to the Duo image. I mean, maybe the Duo's a little bit better than the selfie camera on the Z Fold, but again, it was hard to take the picture because you're doing this, so I was a little out of focus, but I mean, they're really, really similar. And that's going to be the case. If you want better cameras on your Duo 2, this is the only other thing they could have done is they could have had a single world-facing camera and maybe done the notch or the bump divot thing I talked about in an earlier video. But for whatever reason, they decided they're competing with this. And you know, for those that don't remember, let's pop this little case off here. That's a big old bump right there. So that's what they've decided. They've decided that this is who they're competing with. And I know that there's this perception that the Surface Duo is like for this special group of people who are productivity minded. And there's this pushback of like, we don't want features that all other phones have. We're here for productivity. I don't care about a camera. I care about getting work done. And I get that. I get that, you know, things are being added that you don't care about, which is going to make you make a small sacrifice that isn't worth the gain for some people, right? So the sacrifice you're making of, I guess, it being slightly awkward with that bump there and it not folding all the way around, it not sitting flat on a table. Those are sacrifices that you're making and you don't care about the benefit you're going to gain because it's just not what you're into. Like, I appreciate that. I get that. However, Microsoft sees Surface Duo as a design, as a device that can go mainstream. Now we can talk about whether or not they're out of their minds and thinking that, because they might be, but that's their goal. If you think that they launched this thing with the goal to sell it to a percent of a percent of a percent, a tiny little niche of people, you're crazy. They're a company, they're a business, they're here to make money. They want to sell lots of Surface Duos. And they have good reason to think that if someone buys a $1,400 device, they expect a certain threshold of camera performance. So again, I'm sorry that they're not catering directly to you, but they're catering, they're trying to make this thing go mainstream, and they can't go mainstream while catering to a tiny niche in a way that will prevent it from going mainstream. They can't do both. So they've made their choice. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Okay, back to more comments. Ugly and no one will like it. Surface Duo is no longer having its own style. I mean, it compromised its style. Is it pretty? Probably not. Will no one like it? That's probably hyperbole. Horrible. Galaxy Z Fold abandoning ship. Unfortunate. I don't love it, but the black looks better. I really like the matte black Duo. I think that looks freaking all. I think it. Get out of here, OneDrive. I think that looks pretty good, actually. Michael says, I worry about the heat of the AAA. I also worry about the heat of the AAA. The 855 gets pretty toasty in this bad boy, and the AAA has had some heat problems with some devices. I am concerned as well. This thing might get really hot. Microsoft is listening. Camera, charging port, better specs. That's another perspective to have here, maybe, right? People bitched and moaned about the camera. So they didn't just do like a half measure, oh, let's make the camera a little better. They seem to be like swinging as hard as they can at the camera. So it just seems odd to me that we complain that the camera's bad and then we complain that they put too big of a camera on. It's like, I don't know how they would have gotten this right, to be honest. Maybe they couldn't have. Please say this isn't so. Totally idiotic. Why cater to the standard cell phone crowd? Because they want to sell phones. I don't think this is a near final product. It is. I really like your channel. I really like your comment. Thanks, pal. Not understanding why they won't make the rear camera flush like the front camera, because then you would have two cameras that weren't very good. Get the Lumia camera team into the Surface team. We can get a great camera system with no bump. This is not true. You will not. There is no amount of software that would make this tiny, super thin, tiny, teeny, tiny camera be able to compete with this. I'm sorry, there's just not. It's not physics. Physics are a thing. Izzy Boy, here's another good YouTube channel you should be checking out. He has some good Surface Duo content as well. I really wish this design was not final. Something more like we have in Samsung's A32 rear would have been neat. It would have been. It's a big camera bump, but I think that the biggest thing we have to keep in mind is that phones that are, let's do this. How big's the camera bump in the Z Fold? It's big, right? Okay, well then let's talk about the thickness between these two devices. The Duo is quite a bit thinner than the Z Fold, and the Z Fold has a big camera bump. So if you're going to compete in sensor size, you can't squeeze big things into small spaces. It just doesn't work that way. Kind of surprised that Microsoft would actually be going through with a second Surface Duo given the presumed poor sales. I think that they thought Surface Duo was not going to sell well because they knew how hamstrung this thing was going to be, and they knew that it would be the second one. It would add in all the phone features that would actually give it a chance to sell. Some of these phone features are cameras, which people hate. Here's a good comment about what I talked about earlier about, having the camera bump be like leverage where you could like twist it. Hopefully they address that. Dummy unit at best. Okay. I'd love to know what your intel is on these things. Sandra says the same thing. I'm hoping for a bumper flap for the Duo to as thick as the camera tumor. Otherwise, I'd be very concerned. Stress on the hinges. Yeah, we're on the same page on that one for sure. So I can only use the camera in tablet mode. Yeah, if you're taking pictures of the outside world, you're going to be stuck in book mode, so to speak. But however, let's talk about that for a second. I'm glad I saw that comment. So currently, there is a thing you can do with the Surface Duo, where when you're in the camera, you can go into, you can spam the camera app, and then what you get here is your viewfinder here, and then the last picture that you took, your gallery, will be over here. Okay, and I mean that's like only so useful when you're in selfie mode, right? You're just sitting here like taking pictures of myself. That's fine, but with good cameras, you can be sitting there taking pictures and seeing, did I blow my focus there? How did that image look? You'll be able to have a big viewfinder and then be able to see what you just took on the other screen. Maybe I'm out of my mind to be excited about that, but like, I kind of think that might be really cool. I would not be surprised that this camera module has springs below it and the lenses will move down inside the body towards the sensor when you fold the device so it can still fold flat. I would be shocked if that's how it worked. It's kind of a cool idea, but I think that it won't happen because, for one, that would be some cool engineering that might be difficult to pull off. But then two, the space it would then occupy inside is not free. That space, there's a lot of stuff being packed into Duo 2, so it'd be very difficult to pull that off. Darren Lynn, I hope it updated bumper design allows the back to not wobble on a table. Yeah, if it did extend the length of the back and the height of that bump, it would be slanted, but it wouldn't wobble. If they want to add a big block to the back, they should then release a business and casual model for streamers. And I think that, like, this is a thought that is not that far from the truth. You have to think down the line, right? So most phone companies make multiple versions of their main phone, and Microsoft would like to do that as well, but we got to walk before we can run. So yeah, is there a possibility that down the line in the not too distant future that there will be multiple Duo models? Yeah, absolutely. And maybe they will have a model for the business inclined that won't have a big camera bump. It's entirely possible, but for this year, I've heard no report of that. It seems like we're just getting the one model. So guys, there are still a lot more comments than this. There are hundreds of them, but this video can't be an hour long. So I'm going to end it here. If you have more questions for me or things you want to hear me talk about, leave them in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get to them as well. Maybe there will be another video down the line. Who am I kidding? Of course, there will be more videos about Surface Duo down the line. But at any rate, thanks for making it through this long video. Thanks to you guys who have supported me through ScariaFloaterWorld.com's donation page, as well as through Flattr. We've gotten another Flattr contributor just the other day. Thank you so much for supporting me in that way. This is one of my primary ways to make money, so thanks. Stay tuned for more content just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.